Hi, so what I'm going to do in this video is just kind of run step by step through creating a nose boop effect that will make the eyes close. We can set up a little sound to play with it as well. And then we'll have a little particle effect where some particles will just kind of pop out of the nose whenever someone pokes your nose. Before we get started, I have just some basic stuff set up for facial animation things. For right defaults off. I won't be explaining that in this video, but again, I try to remind people whenever they watch my videos to know I do use right defaults off on my expressions lists. So this will definitely work with what you're doing if you use right defaults off. If you use right defaults on, I haven't tested these, so I can't guarantee that it will 100% work. But with that being said, what we're just going to do is just make a nose boop layer right here. We'll set the weight to 1. We'll go ahead and make our float for our receiver, and we'll just call it boop. And what we're going to want to do is set up a empty game object, and we're just going to call this our sender, just so we can test things. And what we're going to do is we're going to the contacts here and we'll get sender. We're just going to add finger to it. We'll also cover all of our fingers. We will make this scale 0.001, so it's a little smaller. And we'll just position this right in front of our nose. So it'll be easy to test out our animation when we do stuff. Actually, it'll end up sinking into the floor, so it'll be somewhere down here. And then what we want is to create another empty game object, and we're going to call this our nose boop receiver. And what we'll do is we'll toss our receiver on it. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the spine here, and we'll go to the head, and we're going to move the nose boop receiver onto the head. And so then what we're going to want to do is zero this out so that it will go to our head. And then we'll just center the XYZ plane on your nose so that it's, about where you want it, because we're going to make it smaller. We'll do 0.001. Let's do 0.01. Okay. Let's do 0.03. We'll do 0.03. So that way when someone pokes in this general area right here, it'll play our animations. We're going to not allow self, so we don't want to accidentally boop ourselves. If you want to be able to boop yourself, you can leave this on. And if you don't want others to be able to boop you, then you could turn it off, but what's the point in that? So we're going to leave allow others on, and we'll turn off allow self. We're not going to use local only. And what we'll do is we'll add a collision tag, and we're just going to add finger onto this. So remember we had our sender that has finger on it, and this will basically interact with anyone's fingers in game whenever they boop here. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're driving the boop parameter. So what we'll do is we'll just put boop in here, and we're just going to use a constant to keep this kind of simple. And so whenever a finger is inside of this receiver zone, it will change our boop float to 1. And it will stay at 1 as long as a nose is, or as long as a finger is inside of this nose boop area. And so that's how our sender and receiver are going to interact with one another here. So now we need to make our animations for this. So what you're going to do is just create animation. And what we're going to do is we will have our boop face. Let's just do boop face. We're going to split these into different layers, but you can combine all of these things together. It's just that I'm going to be reusing animations. Actually, now that I say that, I don't actually need to make this animation. But what you can do, I'll give you an example. So what you can do is if you want to do a facial expression that you already have on your avatar, is you can come in here and grab your facial animation. So we'll go and grab happy, and we'll toss happy into here. So now we have our happy face. I'm turning off defaults. And so what we can do is we also need an empty clip. I have different empty clips made here. So we're going to need an empty clip, and this is going to be our default state, because we don't want anything to happen whenever the game loads in and like we're not being booped. Because if we load in and happy face is our default state, it's going to immediately play this, and we're going to be stuck in happy face. So what this empty clip is, which I will briefly explain, is essentially just a game object that doesn't exist. So like what you would do is you could come in here and let's just make an empty clip really quick so you guys know what this is. Empty test. If I toss this in here, I go into animations and I see empty test here. What we want to do is we just come in here and we just toggle something. Doesn't matter what. You just toggle anything, right? We just toggle the sender off. You come in here and you press F2 and you name it whatever you want. We can just name this null, right? It's something that doesn't exist. And essentially what happens is that it sees it as a clip to be played, but there's nothing that it's actually doing. And this prevents issues with right defaults from doing some wonky stuff sometimes. And so just know that this is something you can do and you should do if you're using right defaults off, because you don't want no motion inside of your clips here. So we will get rid of that because we already have an empty clip. And what we will do is we're going to use a any state, because you can have this transition to multiple faces. So I'm just going to make it use an any state just to simplify things here a little bit. And what we'll do with the any state, we're turning off transition to self. We'll turn off the transition time. Actually, we'll leave this on to 0.1 so that it... Actually, no, we don't need to, because it'll smoothly transition with our expression stuff. And what we'll do is we'll grab our boop float, and we'll say whenever boop float is less than 0.05, we will go back to this empty clip, which is doing nothing. So it allows our expressions to start taking over again. And then what we'll do is make a transition to our happy face. And what we will do is we'll say that, and again, turn off can transition to self, and all of this here. Boop is greater than, and then 0.05. So whenever boop is greater than 0.05, it will transition to the happy face. Okay. This should already work. So let's check it really quick. And what we'll do is we'll set up other layers for a little particle effect, and we can even set it up for some sound as well. And my project takes forever to load into stuff now because I'm doing so many things on my other Abby. Okay. So we have, where is our sender? Get rid of this stuff here. So you can see in our like faces work. So we got our faces doing stuff. And then whenever we boop, it should do happy face. There we go. You can see whenever this sender makes contact, it does our happy face. And we can set a transition time with this. That's what I was messing with there, where this is a little bit more smooth than just an instant snap. So that's working now. And another thing that's cool with this is that if you're already doing a face, so say we're doing our surprised face, and then someone boops you, it gets rid of your surprised face. It overrides it for you. And then they stop booping you, and you're back to your surprised face. So very cool stuff. Just overriding things. The lower the layer, the higher priority it has. So this layer has a higher priority than expressions left and right. So anything that plays in here will override these previous layers, is essentially how that works. So what we'll do is we'll do nose boop particle. And we'll just set this to 1. And I want to grab, let's see, have an animations. There we go. We'll get rid of this one. Actually, we'll just rename it because we didn't actually do anything with it. And we'll just say boop particles. And we'll need a boop particles off as well. Boop particles off. And so we'll come in here and we'll have our default state be off, and then we'll have a transition to our boop particles on. And we're just going to set up the exact same thing. We're just not using the any state this time because this is just going to be an on-off thing instead of interacting with our gestures. So same settings where we can just make this one instant. And whenever our boop is greater than 0.05, we're going to transition into our animation that is going to play our particles. And then whenever boop goes back below, whenever boop goes back below 0.05, we will transition back into our off animation that turns our particle system off. And so what we'll do is we will just create a particle system. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this on our head so that whenever we get booped, we're not going to see it because we don't want to see particles right in front of our nose like that. It'll be kind of annoying right in our face right there. We will turn the shape into a sphere. We'll make it the sphere very small. And whoops. You can press F to zoom in on things and focus on things, but sometimes it can work kind of weird with the scaling. That's why that zoomed me out so far. So we will make this a little bit smaller. Let's do that there. Get it situated. Okay. Let's make our particle lifetime 1. Yeah, that looks good. We'll make our size 0.01. 0.01 seems fine. We'll make our start speed. Let's do 0.5. 0.25. That's a little better. And actually what we can do is instead of a sphere, we could do a hemisphere. And so that'll kind of control it to go out towards the people that are booping us, right? And we can change this into a burst. So instead of it being a constant over time, we'll just add this here and we'll make it a burst. And so something like that will happen. We're going to make the lifetime duration, let's see, 0.05. So you can spam it if you want like this. Let's just say 1 is our repeating cycle. But actually we're not going to loop this. So actually we can just make this 0.05. It'll trigger extremely fast. And so when someone boops you, it'll play these particles. We'll make the lifetime 0.5 maybe. Let's make it 0.75. Again, particle systems you gotta kind of play with and find what you want or how you have it set up. We could, if we want to, we can make these instead of billboard, we can make them billboard stretched. It'll make them stretch out a little bit more depending on their velocity. They'll kind of squish. And what else can we do here? We could do color over lifetime. So what we can do is take the alpha for it and say, hey, as it gets closer to the end, it's going to fade away, essentially. So see how they fade out now as they get further away. And what we can do also is size over lifetime, and we'll just flip this graph. So this is saying that it starts out small and gets big as you get to the end. See? But we're going to just flip this. So we're going to say it starts out big and gets smaller. And you know, customize this to whatever you're wanting to do here. We could even add a bit of limiting the velocity, and we could dampen it a little bit. Let's see. Maybe even 0.75. Let's put some drag on it as well. Doesn't look like it's doing a whole lot, actually. It's probably because our lifetime's extremely low on this, so it's not going to make as big of a difference. But that's something you can put on as well if you want to slow down particles a little bit. But let's see. We could find a different look for our particle if we wanted. Let's see. I've got a few different particles here. Let's just say stars. We want stars. Cool. And we can actually change this from stretched to just normal billboard again. And we'll make the color yellow. There we go. So now whenever someone boops us, we can make it to where some stars fly out. And so what we'll want to do is make it so that it toggles our game object on and off. And we'll just leave this to play on awake. You can decide to leave the simulation space either in local or in world, depending on what you want to do here. If it's local, these stars will move with your head as you move your head around. If it's world, then you can move your head around and these stars will continue to project out from where they originally came from. What we're going to do is leave it on local so it'll follow our head. Makes a little bit more sense. And so our animation for our particle system here will just be, let's see, let's name this boop particles. And we will go over here and find our boop particles off. I just click the record button. You don't need to duplicate your avatar if you don't want to. You just do really specific steps where you click record, toggle off your object, click record. You're safe. You won't break your avatar. Double click this to turn it off and back on. It's recorded it turning off and back on. And there we go. We've made our 2 animations. Now this will just work with our news boop, or it should. It might play because I didn't initially toggle this off, so it might actually play whenever we load in. So you'd want to make sure that this game object is toggled off whenever you upload your avatar. Otherwise, when you load in, it will maybe cycle this animation once, or like this particle system once, and then like be in the off state. Looks like we might have lucked out. Maybe. If you lucked out, it didn't play. And so here, we can test. So now when we nose boop, we should do a happy face and we should get some particles. Boom. Just like that. And what we can do is technically these particles would go away when someone isn't touching your nose. So we can set up the particle system to where there's maybe like a little buffer period before it turns off to catch it. So what we could do is, and this is kind of the usefulness of empty clips, is we could type in empty, and let's just say I've got a 1 second timer empty clip here, okay? So what we want to do is we'll take our transition back and we'll delete this and we'll go to the empty clip. And what we can do with this empty clip is we can say, hey, you can transition out immediately. Whoops. There we go. So you can transition out immediately and then you go to less than 0.05. And now for our transition out of this clip, what we want to do is make sure that our transition has 1 on the exit time. So it will play through our 1 second timer here. Even though it's doing nothing, this animation is just a 1 second clip of nothing happening. It's just toggling this game object that doesn't exist. So nothing's happening. It gets caught in here, then it goes back. So if you look, when we do our nose boop, it will basically allow for the particles to keep going out while it's playing this, and then it'll reset as it goes back here. Gives you a little bit of a buffer. There's multiple ways to do this. You can use buffer particles, you can use multiple particle systems. This is just one way that you could do this. So if we go over here and we check again, and you see how they stay, even though we're not touching it anymore. Because this is a little buffer for these particles to keep going out and disappear. There we go. So really quick, for my own sanity, we're going to make it so that this has a transition, and we're just going to say 0.1. And we'll do 0.1 for the transition out as well. It's a little smoother. And so now what we want to do is we want to set up a sound. And what we can do is, if you want to hear the sound, I haven't tested this myself, but I believe that anything on the head isn't actually like easy. I think it scales down, if I remember correctly, whenever things are on your head. I'm not sure if sounds work that way. So this would be something interesting to test, but what we can do is put our boop sound on here. And what we'll do is we'll grab an audio source and we're going to toss this onto our Abby. What you want to make sure you do is take spatial blend and make this 3D. Otherwise, if it's over here on 2D, it'll play across the entire world. So make sure this is 3D for everyone else in the lobby. Logarithmic or linear is... Logarithmic will essentially make it to where it's like an exponential gain essentially for the audio source, or you can do a linear, which is just, as you can see, just it's linearly increasing or decreasing in sound. We'll do linear, and we'll do, let's just do 1 for the max distance, make it small. And our min distance we'll just make really small as well. And what we'll do is we'll just toss our boop sound on the tip of our nose. Right here. Cool. And we'll leave our volume, we'll do our volume at 0.5 to just start out and be safe. We will make it so that our audio source does not loop. We don't want it to loop. We're going to toggle it on and off just like our sounds, just like our particle system. And what I will do is grab, where is it? The duck toy squeak. This is just like a little squeaky toy sound. And we will create an animation for this. So let's go to animations. And we're just going to make 2 more. So we'll do sound off. Or let's see, boop sound. We'll do boop sound. Boop sound off. And then we'll duplicate this, just Control D. And then you can press F2 on it to edit the name. And we'll just do boop sound, or boop sound on. Make a new layer. Nose boop sound. We'll change the weight to 1. And then what we'll do is we'll just grab our 2 animations. Same thing as the other. And what we can do as well is create a buffer in here for it to turn off, or we can just create the animation time to be long enough for it to play. Either way works. We'll probably do it the second way that I just said. So we'll do instant transition times. Boop is greater than 0.05. And again, instant transition time. And boop is less than 0.05. Okay. And so what we'll do is we will just come in here, find our animation, so boop sound off. And what we're going to do is create a 2-framed clip here so that this animation plays extremely quick. If you just toggle this off once like this, and you play this animation, I'll show you. Actually, yeah, I'll show you. So if you play this animation, it will take a second for it to go across. I believe the default amount of time for a animation is 1 second. So if you create a 2 keyframed animation, this is technically like 0.1 seconds or 0.01 second. Yes, 0.01 second. And so it plays extremely quick. So as you can see here, it takes a second. So we'll do a nose boop really quick. Go into scene. And then so watch how slow this takes. You saw how slow this went across. It'll do the same thing here. See how it has to play really slow there? So now if we go in here and we change our boop sound off to 2 keyframes. And for the sake of this, I'm just going to make our other animation really quick. We're just going to make this, make it 0.35. So this is 35 milliseconds, not seconds, but milliseconds here. So now, whenever our boop sound plays, you're going to see it's going to instantly go across because it's going across 1 keyframe. It's going to be extremely quick. And basically, this just lets you play through the animation faster, so it's a reset in time to then play the sound again. So it just gives you a little bit of more responsiveness for people when they boop in your nose. So you see how it's like pretty much instant there? And our boop sound should work as well. So if we test here, there you go. And so now we've got a boop sound that plays a happy face and has some particles. And so that's kind of the basic gist of creating a nose boop interactive sender receiver contact system animation set here. Yes, you could probably get these combined into a single layer. But I wanted to create this video so that people can see the individual pieces that are rolling as you do these things. If you really wanted to, you could create an entirely custom animation right here that has all of these things in it. So it has the particle system and the sound, and put all of this into one layer. But I just generally split up my things here so I have a bit more control over what I'm doing. And it also should help kind of convey what exactly is happening with each animation. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions on how I did things here or future videos of other things to show, just ask in the comments below and I'd be happy to help.